Inside the Arena is presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sportsbook.
Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
David Lee sounding as great as ever.
You know, somehow every week he just gets better and better, and turn the show does get better and better.
85 weeks in.
The year I was born.
1985. Great year, too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember much of it, but I was born.
Well, I think this is a great show this week with a pretty substantial guest in Washington State University President Elizabeth Cantwell. Of course, a lot of people have been discussing over the last couple of years, like we have on this show, about the changing world of college athletics, NIL. She has been knee-deep in it with the creation of the startup Pac-12, as she likes to refer to it, and also the hiring of a new football coach, Kirby Moore.
I love that
She was involved in it. Involved in interviewing the finalists. She talks about that. She talks about expansion, when they may expand, what the TV contract looks like. I think it's the first time I've heard anybody give an indication on just how much money they are receiving from their TV and digital rights contract, and that is all coming up here later in the show.
Yeah, and we've got a lot about the state of college sports in this show.
Yes, and it's been interesting watching the Cougs here in the last couple of weeks with Kirby Moore.
Yeah.
Recruiting and getting transfers from all over the country. We just saw the State Player of the Year commit to Washington State University.
So he just flipped from Oregon State.
Yeah, Kirby Moore is doing some magic there.
He is the kind of coach that is perfect for WSU. Now, I don't want to give illusions that he's there forever, because you might start to think about that with his history in the state, winning a state title, being from Prosser and all that. But regardless, maybe that happens. Who knows? But regardless of all that, he's a perfect hire for that institution where they are right now. He's an upstart young coach, and what's really, even if the conference has been around forever, and this is an upstart new Pac-12, he's got this new energy, and I think he's the right voice at the right time. You oftentimes see, if you think about the Seahawks moving on from Pete Carroll to Mike McDonald, it was to have a different voice, the right voice at the right time. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying it's the same logic and idea, even if the Cougs were forced into it by Jimmy Rogers leaving. And I loved, as soon as I saw Kirby was a candidate, I'm like, yeah, they better lock that guy up.
He checks a lot of boxes, and I think that Cougar fans in particular are going to like what the university president Elizabeth Cantwell has to say a bit later in the show. But it's what we like to do every week.
We
like to touch every base, right?
I was just going to say, some of your Cougs friends, I like to let the crowd talk for a minute here. Some of the Cougs in our newsroom, former newsroom members like Eric Johnson, they get so mad every time I'd post a picture with Dubs the Husky, who I have a very, very soft spot for. Dog person, but also he's Dubs, and he's such a good dog. But I'm like, listen, man, if the Cougars still had the live Cougar, I would pet that thing too. I might not have a hand left, but I would pet that thing too. Like, I'm not going to pet some guy in a costume. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not personal.
Wow. Imagine if they still did have a live Cougar. That'd be a whole nother show.
It would be. When I was at the Sugar Bowl, UW in Texas, I, pet Bevo, the big longhorn. I was afraid about getting gored for a second there, but I'm like, you know what? You're a cute animal. You're a live animal,
Well, speaking of good things, what else do you like
here's
this
the
week?
thing, Chris. So my positive and negative this week are literally the same subject, but different takes. You already know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Positive, I'm glad this UW and DeMond Williams thing is solved. There's some big positives to come out of it. And it's what we talked about last week. It's the idea that by UW standing their ground, it sets a precedent in college sports. And at least in one aspect, we are not looking at the Wild West anymore. The contracts are not made to be broken 4 days later. That contracts are not meaningless in college football. They do mean something. And listen, ultimately, DeMond is a 19-year-old kid. This is what I said last week. It's who's advising him. It's not the kid, who by all accounts, every time I talk to him, is a pleasant young man. It's all these other people that are coming in the mix, whether it's family, friends, advisors, whoever it is. This is a great lesson to come out of this as well, that you have to, even if there's more money on the table, who doesn't want more money? You have to be have somebody who's in your best interest in the larger picture, not short-sighted, in the larger picture. And eventually that's what won out. It was forced in that way. So it's my positive for a few things. Number one, that it held the ground for all of college sports. And we had talked about this. Colleges around the country were watching to see what happened with DeMond Williams and UW. But also I think it serves not just as that line in the sand, but it also serves as an example for other kids out there. Inevitably, there's going to be a kid next year that signs a deal with Institution A and Institution B offers $2 million more. And, they can look at what happened with DeMond and how quickly it changed and how he very much could have put his career in jeopardy if he was dead set on going wherever else. And I think that kind of, serves as a lesson for kids in the future. And DeMond will be better for it. Husky fans will cheer him in the fall. Don't be silly. Don't hold grudges. 19-year-old kid maybe got a little bit of short-sighted or at very worst, bad advice. Everybody figured it out. Kudos to Jedfish for staying the course there. Pat Chun had those joint statements out there. So I'm happy it's resolved. But much more than that, I'm glad that it sets a precedent for college sports.
Well, and it does also peel back the onion a little bit, at least a layer on the onion for just to explain to people how this works. I mean, the fact that he had an agent, he also had other people in his ear. There are agents that are actively trying to get kids at a high school level to sign with them. I mean, this is a completely different world than 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, think about Cam Ward when he went to Washington State. He signed an NIL deal that was 5 figures at the time, and he got a free car out of it. And we thought, wow, this is kind of crazy. And Washington State outbid Ole Miss for Cam Ward at that point in time. Now we're talking about these kids seeking $4, $5, $6, $7 million deals to attend college.
Yeah.
It is a different world, and clearly he lost his agent over the whole flap. But I think it also at least peels the layers back a little bit to tell people that perhaps some regulation is needed, perhaps on a congressional level, because this is getting crazy quick.
There needs to be a commissioner or something. The NCAA has been, through the Supreme Court, quite frankly, proven to be, ineffective.
Yeah.
Like they're losing these court cases and because they held such an iron grip and were so dated for so long, right? So there needs congressional. I think that's the way you get something like this passed. But I ultimately think the solution, listen, if they want to be the NFL light with these contracts and stuff, you need a similar model to the NFL. Commissioner, you need to have a similar calendar. Free agency, aka the transfer portal, needs to open after the season.
Yeah.
Like you don't see Rashid Shaheed going from the Seahawks to the Saints or vice versa. No, that's a bad example. It's a trade example. And let's say Sam Darnold gets hurt next week. You're not going to see, the Chargers out of the playoffs sending Justin Herbert over to the Seahawks. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what's going on in college football.
Yeah.
It's chaos. You need order. And if you want to be NFL light, which is clearly what this is trending towards, just a larger number of teams, then you at least need to follow a similar calendar, which clearly works to sustain order and keep this thing rolling.
Yeah, think about it. I saw somebody put out a post that if the NFL was college football, we'd be talking about Mike Macdonald being recruited by the New York Giants or some other franchise right now. It's weird.
It is. And ultimately, I think it's a bad thing as far as we already have the NFL. That wasn't the draw of college football. It was allegiance to your region, your school you went to, the amateurism, so to speak. And these guys need to get paid. I'm not saying that. But the more and more you're getting towards that NFL model, it's like, well, we have the NFL already, is my take on it.
Well, I'll give a positive in this realm this week to a Wazoo alum, Glenn Osterhout, who has been saying, Chris, it's the great ascension of WSU. For all these people who are saying that the sky is falling and the crimson and the gray sky is falling over the Palouse, Glenn has been a guy. He was the one who helped get those billboards up during the Apple Cup week. He's been doing small stuff behind the scene to get people reinvigorated in Washington State University athletics. This is the kind of thing that you see at some schools where there's a prominent alumni. Glenn's been involved for a long time and just trying to get the word out and trying to get the messaging out and get people reconnected. A little thing in a big picture when we talk about the changing world of college athletics. Glenn, I wanted to salute you. Always emailing me saying, look at this thing that we're doing. Look at the $5 donations we're getting here, the $10 donations getting here. And I think he's made a difference.
Yeah. And are you ready for a season opener Apple Cup?
I don't know if I'm ready for that.
I don't know. It's gonna be like 90 degrees out. Yeah. It's just not.
It's not the same. It needs to be raining sideways or snow.
That was the one thing. It was so weird that it was a Lumen Field, but at least it rained a little bit to kind of make it feel like it was gray and stuff.
Yeah, I've seen now 2 Apple Cups in just thick snow. One in 1992, one of the greatest Coug games of all time, with people sliding through the end zone, Drew Bledsoe slinging it left and right in the snow, the Huskies slipping all over the place. And then, unfortunately, that other game where Gardner Minshew couldn't throw 5 yards in front of him because it was so thick and snowy. Yeah. And unfortunately, given everything that has changed in the landscape, we're not going to see that again.
No, unfortunately not. I mean, maybe one day. I still hold out hope that in like 10 years from now, all these schools are like, what are we doing? Why are we sending our volleyball team from LA to New Jersey? Like, you know what I'm saying? Then one day we'll get some order, but it's not anywhere in the near future. Can I give one more positive?
Yes.
Sounders started preseason practice.
Oh my goodness, already?
Officially, in my eyes, kicking off what could be the greatest soccer year. You know, we already have the World Cup, which kind of like puts it already up there.
Yeah.
But if the Sounders, you know, they always seem to win trophies. It was Leagues Cup in 25. If they can have another good year, great year, then it could be one of the greatest years of all time. So I'm happy to. Anytime you're seeing Brian Schmetzer kind of hold court on the field there, you know it's a good day.
So what don't you like?
Well, it's the same thing I was talking about with DeMond and UW, but it just goes to the larger picture. The adults need to be the adults in the room. And this goes all over. And it's the people advising these kids, and whether they're loved ones, whether they're people just looking for the piece of the pie, you know, you have to have a responsibility. It's funny, Chris, like we're in different lines of work, but I can't imagine advising a 19-year-old, say, journalist coming up and doing so without anything but the best for them in mind. It's a different animal, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm doing this like, well, I can help this kid if they can help KOMO. Like, of course not. No, you just help somebody. And, you know, it's just this idea that college sports has just become this like Southeastern like flexing match or something. Like, like if you looked at it in social media when this whole thing was going on, everybody's like folks in the Southeastern part of the country, like, Lane's going in there with that $6 million. Who cares? It's bad for the sport. Like, do you really want it to be just LSU and a few other? I mean, I'm so glad this national title game coming up is Miami and Indiana.
Indiana, just a great story.
It's because it's a great story. And listen, Miami is one of the rumored suitors for DeMond, but they're not in the SEC, which is good enough for me in that way. So it's just like, but it goes back to the point. It's like the adults need to be the adults. Can we stop treating this as like Lane? There's nothing wrong with Lane Kiffin trying to get a guy, like, because all the other coaches are trying to do it. This isn't piling on him, but it's just overall bad for the sport. And while I add the positives from the end result of it, it's the idea that it's just becoming this like flexing match with like college presidents and coaches in one corner of the country that are just driving something the entire nation loved and driving it into the ground in a lot of ways. Now people, it's in the ground. Look at the ratings. Wait a few years, see if that sustains, if it keeps in this trajectory, which I don't think it will. I think people will step in. Enough coaches want a calendar and reform to make sure that the game that we all love kind of stays in a positive light.
But again, as I've said on this show before with you, it takes away any incentive for these kids to actually want to go to class.
Exactly. That's the thing. You know, and then I'm glad the kids are getting good money because you can be a really good college player and you can still make some generational wealth. And I think that's a good thing. How many college players growing up that we watched that are like, oh man, I love that guy, but they didn't really make it in the league. And you know, so they're not really, other than nostalgia, they didn't, and the degree. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad they're making good money. It's just a matter of we need to stop making this about the adults and more about the kids.
Yeah. Well, let's close it out by we've covered NIL and DeMond's situation enough. I'll just freelance and say, can we all just get some World Cup tickets at some point in time? Can we fix this whole system? I'm talking to people again this week who say, hey, I'm the biggest soccer fan in Seattle, and I cannot crack the code on FIFA. They've got another window that's closing. They're going to do another round of ticket sales, allegedly, and then as soon as they announce all this, then nobody can buy tickets, and then FIFA says, oh, we've already sold 4 million tickets. Yeah. This has not been a great system, and I know the Seattle World Cup Organizing Committee has nothing to do with that. They always want to stress that. But my goodness, can we speed this up and make it easier for people to get tickets?
If it was up to the Seattle committee, everybody in Seattle would get a ticket.
Yes.
But it's unfortunately not.
Hey, speaking of Seattle, the other thing we like to do every week, if I can find it.
No, it's the top one. Man.
It's Bill moved around all the buzzers. Supersonic. Supersonic minute. There is unlike last week with the Crickets, there is a little bit of news this week.
Yeah.
Bloomberg is reporting that Adam Silver is going to be addressing the media this week, depending on when you're hearing this, in Europe to talk about European expansion. It sounds like the NBA is settling in at $1 billion expansion fee for every franchise in a new European league. He's going to be talking in London and Berlin. Those are two cities that, of course, that are on the radar for the NBA. 12 franchises, potentially 4 additional teams that don't have equity in the league. They've already talked to PSG and Man City, the owners of the soccer franchises, about being involved in this. This is one of the pieces of the puzzle when we talk about domestic expansion in Seattle. The Supersonics coming back. Looks like, again, 2026, 2027 is what they're angling for starting that league. But you put $1 billion on a brand new team in Europe, that gives you an idea, but perhaps what they're going to be asking here in Seattle.
It's one of those things we've always looked at, like, okay, they're talking about this league starting, but at the same time, how does that affect, like you're saying, Vegas, Seattle domestic expansion? Well, the quicker this European thing gets settled, the more attention can be turned to expansion for the NBA itself, whether or not that is going to happen or not. But, between that and relocation, I feel reasonably good that, God, by the end of the decade, we're feeling a lot like we're seeing basketball. It's not based on it, it's just my own take on it. And that would be, even if it's longer than we wanted, that'd be a win in the long run.
Well, speaking of expansion, in the Pac-12, of course.
Yeah, that's an intriguing one to watch.
Yeah, Betsy Cantwell, otherwise known as Elizabeth Cantwell, the president of Washington State University. She's only been on the job since April. She's already made a ton of changes there. We've talked about the change with the athletic director position. That was one of the first things she has done there. She's also made some other significant moves on campus. She was heavily involved in the football coach search, Kirby Moore, and his hiring. We had a chance to talk a lot about changes at Martin Stadium, beer and wine sales in the future, new revenue, why they need the revenue, where it's going to be spent, all of that. You'll hear from Dr. Elizabeth Cantwell, the president of Washington State University, immediately after this.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head up to Hawks Peak Sports Bar and Grill at Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel. The place to be for game days. With over 60 TVs, you won't miss a single play, no matter where you sit. Grab your crew, your favorite bites, and your go-to drink, and catch every touchdown, dunk, or goal in style. Hawks Peak Sports Bar and Grill, where every seat is the best seat in the house. Learn more at snowcasino.com.
And that brings us to the athletic department, which I know that you've been heavily involved in.
I have been.
I think I heard a number that you've spent 50% of your time since
my
you've
mental
been
time, not my physical time. So I like to say I do my mind share for athletics is really significant. Why? Well, sometimes you can characterize it as a problem, but I like to look at it the following way. All of higher ed is being disrupted right now. It's being disrupted by technology. It's being disrupted by revenue streams. It's being disrupted by perspective on the value of education, whether it's real or not, etc. Athletics is also being disrupted. So at the same time, there are those disruptions plus more, right? The impact of money is stark. The re-envisioning of what the role of a student athlete is and what they deserve is changing a lot. I like to call it the deal structures, meaning it could be everything from how are we as an institution, this is not us, but how am I as a president going to think about monetizing my athletics infrastructure? There's deal structure to be done there, as well as a deal structure for name, image, likeness. So disruption. The methodology for dealing with those kinds of disruptions that are probably in athletics, college athletics, at least 5 years, if not more in the future. Why? Because all our media rights deals will be turning over in the 4-year time frame. That means in the 3-year time frame, those things are going to start. And is that going to cause as much shift and change as the major conference realignment? Maybe. We have to be ready for that, meaning we have to do everything we can to position WSU in the best place it can be at that time. And I the rubric I use for that is we have to be interesting. And I think the same is true on the university side. We have to be interesting, which means we can't, aw shucks, we're not all that. We have to talk about not just who we are and what we are, but what we are doing to meet the future. So a lot of athletics is around being very frank and open about the current moment, as well as what the possibilities are. I will take the moment, like to talk about the new Pac-12 as one of the most interesting conferences out there. There is no other startup conference on the map anywhere. And if you are an aficionado of startups, you know what that can do with regard to driving incredible energy and interest. We're not like the other guys. And we don't need to try and be like the other guys. We definitely need to play games and we need to compete and win. But being interesting is part and parcel of that for us. It's not about having hundreds of millions of dollars of NIL deals. It is about proving that there is value in the kind of conference that we are starting back up. So it starts in June, first football season in the fall. I'm pretty excited about Kirby Moore and what we will do. And I guarantee you will be interesting.
So that's why you got so involved in the athletic department, making the changes there, and then you were also involved in the hiring of Kirby Moore.
It was, because I feel like my job is to make sure that as we are negotiating our way through years of disruption, we are maintaining our ability to serve the people of Washington.
What was it about Kirby Moore, besides the fact he's a Prosser guy?
Obviously, he's a child of Eastern Washington, right? Or child of Washington, with an incredible story. But that story is sort of the entree to, this is a really interesting guy. He is strategically really interesting. Yes, he's young. He's also really smart. And being a younger head coach today, in my opinion, is a bit of an asset. Because of all the disruption. That's what he's lived with and through his entire career. He didn't grow up in another world and then is adjusting. He's on it. And you see that right now with the speed with which and the definitiveness with which he's assembling his coaching team, with which he's negotiating with students and bringing back lots of students to retaining them, bringing other students out of the portal. And that is a value proposition that was pretty hard to walk away from.
We were just talking about numbers on the academic side, but in athletics, I think you've thrown around the number $20 million that's needed.
$20 million a year. I like to keep people focused on that number for the following reason. That our media revenue dropped when we dropped out of the Pac-12 and into the Pac-2, and it will be a little bit normalized to somewhere at the, it's hard to say right now exactly, but at the 2/3 level of the media revenue that we brought in from the old Pac-12. Nominally, that means we are short about $20 million a year if we want to just keep doing things the way we've been doing them. We are madly and successfully looking for alternative revenue streams for athletics. We are madly and successfully looking at how do we operate more efficiently with all of the sports that we have. And so that $20 million bogey for all Cougs everywhere is kind of the bogey that we should have in front of us if we want to optimize how interesting we can be.
So that's to offset what may have been lost in that transition?
Pretty much.
Okay. Beer and wine coming back?
Well, beer and wine in the stands is a thing.
Now?
Right now. And I would say I am heartened. Let's see, we had, I can't remember how many home games, 4 maybe, after that was approved by the state liquor board. Really none so far of the potential problems that we anticipated and trained for and were ready for. So it's been enormously successful, and there's definitely been revenue from that. But more importantly, fans like it.
And that's all separate from the changes to the stadium, right?
Correct.
That was another $10 million you were looking for.
Yes, and we actually, blessings and thanks to all the Cougs that stepped up, we brought in that $10 million, and that will mean that what I call the fan experience. So some smaller things, but the big one is a really new kind of scoreboard experience, like boy, when we were at the Ole Miss game or the University of Virginia game, and they have these multimedia scoreboards and technology all around the stadium, and the way the lights work and the music, and it was really amazing. We feel that for our fans to get the best and most worthwhile experience, we need to do that. We've been kind of on it for a while, but I want it in place and operational when we start playing football in August.
Well, and the challenge has been getting fans to make the drive
Yes.
over or the drive down
Yes.
because of the whole issues with the motels and how they charge a certain amount on
Yes.
game weekends because that's how they make up the revenue for the rest of the week. You've talked about this, not having people camp in the back of the Idalou Henderson house.
Well, I haven't set that up yet, but I'm still thinking about it.
But is there like a subsidy or something that
It's $100,000 a year.
Whitman County or the city of Pullman
Yes.
you could work with to try and
Yes.
figure
So
out
we
some
are-
more places?
We are absolutely working with the city of Pullman already, and basically pulling together everybody that is willing to come to the table, but particularly Whitman County and city of Pullman around, what's the future of this place, and how does athletics play a role in the future of the place? And there are some what I call tactical or really near-term issues, like how do we make the experience of coming here for a football weekend worth coming here for? When I say I'm going to put tents in the backyard of my house, I think we can all think about, like, how do we make places to stay that are fun, that are very, Coug appropriate, that have transportation to and from the stadium. How do we make sure that if you come in on a Thursday, Friday's pretty cool. We're really looking hard at rebuilding concert sort of platforms so that we can get all kinds of music and comedians, just all kinds of entertainment, and then make it family friendly as well. So we're really looking hard at how do we always ask the question, if you are a family with children, what is there for you here, and how do we make that a good experience for those families as well as people who come without their kids?
Beasley could be a component of all
Beasley's
that.
a huge potential deal there.
So in terms of expansion, because that seems to have just grinded to a halt because of the TV deals that have been announced, because of the Mountain West
Yep.
legal wrangling, is there anything more that can be said about an expansion timeline or adding other schools?
No, there really truly isn't. However, it's also not off the table. I think, let me just say the way I feel is we really need to get into that first football season and demonstrate being interesting. And I think we will. And I think that opportunities will open up that we either aren't seeing now or aren't really truly open opportunities. And I don't feel personally that some, anxiety about that.
Do the schools have to be west of the Mississippi if you were to expand?
Boy, you're asking that. So I would only, I don't know. Case by case, I have said very publicly that I think part of what's going on in college athletics today is a real disrespect for the West Coast for a lot of touted reasons, but I don't think any of them add up to anything other than we can keep all the revenue in our little group, and that's what we're going to do. From that perspective, you could say that's but who wants to come to it? Who understands who we are? We start playing football, and then everyone really sees what this is. Who wants to be part of that?
So why don't we end with this? It seems like everything that we've discussed academically or athletically, you put 2029, 2030
that's
on
about
the
right.
calendar.
That's exactly right.
That you're laser focused on
Yep.
changing Washington State University in a positive way
Yep.
before that date on the calendar.
More or less, I think that's true. Now, that's not the end of anything, but I do think there's a lot of shift that will kind of culminate in some things that are happening at that point. Look, we have to make our mark.
So one of the big things that jumps out right there is what she said at the end. It does sound like this whole timeline, this whole plan, this whole business plan for Washington State University athletics is really with a target on 29-30, and when those TV contracts are up again and potential realignment once again. So everything that's happening right now and all of the money that's being discussed right now is with an eye on 2029, 2030.
And I think they'll be in an exponentially better position by then. WSU, that is.
Yeah, they've got to continue to win.
Yeah, that's it. Winning cures everything.
And will the win happen this weekend for the Seahawks?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. And so playoffs, Mike McDonald said, listen, 99.9% chance that game's going to go differently than the one I was at in Santa Clara. I'm back on the 3rd. But I'll tell you what, if you're going to be the Hawks and you're going to go to the Super Bowl, you want to go through the Niners. You want to go through potentially the Rams. No offense to my wife's Bears. And that would be a fitting way to get back there for the first time since the Legion of Boom days. Fingers crossed.
Well, we will hold our breath and we will wait for one other person to speak.
David Lee, take us out.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.
Inside the Arena was presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sports book.